Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Courtside with Beilinson Tennis, part of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. Here, as always, with my co-host and Hall of Famer, Steve Flink. We didn't really do a pre-Rafa preview. I put a little snippet out there on social media. I know we were listening to a lot of people talk about Rafa, but for as far as time stamping purposes, we're here on Wednesday night. We are definitely going to talk about the Rafa Nadal Sascha Zverev match. But the match that just completed earlier today was unbelievable between Naomi Osaka and Iga Swiatek. Iga winning 7-5 in the third. So we're going to go in depth in both those matches. Before we get into that, Steve, just a couple of housekeeping items. Is that all right with you?
Sure. Fire away.
Non-French Open items, Laver Cup captains. A little while ago, it was named Andre Agassi for Team World. There were rumors that Andre was going to be named. And then just last night for Team Europe, some were guessing Roger Federer. It was not Roger Federer. It was Yannick Noah. You got Andre and Yannick. They played against each other a number of times, both very flamboyant type of players, individuals. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on both Andre and Yannick Noah taking over the reins for Laver Cup?
Yeah, good logical choices, a lot of spirit. They both know what it's like to be involved on teams with a great Davis Cup experience. I will say this regarding Federer. I think if he'd wanted it now, he would have it. That's no knock on Yannick, but I think that there was all that speculation. He obviously at this point feels like he can wait, and that's fine. And Yannick will do a first-rate job for probably at least for 5 years, I suspect. And so I think they'll both enjoy it. I think they'll both be a big help to their teams, and I think they're excellent choices.
And I think however long Andre and Yannick are the captains for their respective teams, I think the next round, maybe, again, who knows where we're going to be in whenever there's 3, 4, 5 years, but possibly maybe Andy Roddick for Team World and then Roger Federer for Team Europe, which would also be very enticing if that played itself out.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be interesting. Roddick has a lot on his plate, and he's enjoying his podcast and some commentary. I thought it would have been possible even this time around for him. So part of it will be how much interest does he have, because I think Andy, at one point, we saw him as a possible U.S. Davis Cup captain, and that hasn't happened yet either. Some of it's going to depend on what his inclinations are and how much he wants to do something like that. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
All right, let's go into the French Open now, because again, we're a couple days in. The rain is a problem right now. Their schedule is starting to get backloaded. Thankfully, they start the tournament on Sunday, but tomorrow it's going to be a packed schedule, and there's more rain expected this week, so they're going to have to deal with that. With that said, there's been some incredible tennis. None more incredible than the match that completed earlier today between Iga Swiatek and Naomi Osaka. Iga winning 7-5 in the third set. Osaka up 5-2 in the third with a match point. I knew, and a lot of others had their eyeballs on this potential second round match, Steve. I mean, how could you not? Maybe it's not the Naomi Osaka who was winning slams, but today she played at an extremely high level.
Well, let's remember the reason there wasn't even more excitement leading into the match was simply because nobody really expected this kind of a stellar performance from Naomi on the clay. And if you even look at her opening round match, she was up 4-11 in the third and lost 5 games in a row and had to serve to stay in the match, ran out 3 straight games to win that contest. So that wasn't terribly encouraging in terms of her clay court form. She's definitely played better on the clay this year than in the past. But that's one of the, I have to say, I was thinking it's probably a 3-4 match. I hope Naomi plays well. I just couldn't see how she was going to test Iga the way she did. But David, it was spectacular stuff. What will be forgotten is that she actually had a set point in the first set. It was Iga who got off to a quick start, broke Naomi in the third game of the match. She wouldn't break Osaka again until Osaka served for the match at 5-3 in the final set, despite an incredible number of break points in between. But anyway, what happened was Osaka got back into that first set after Swiatek led 4-3, 40 love. Naomi won the next 2 games and had a set point. on Iga's serve, and Iga played a very clever point, hit a ball behind Osaka to her backhand side, had her off balance, and Naomi missed a backhand long. That was a missed opportunity there. And then in the tiebreak in that set, Swiatek was Djokovic-like, just sedulously protecting her turf, no stopping her, just blitz through the tiebreak, wouldn't make any errors. And so again, you're thinking, okay, nice effort from Naomi. She's done so well to push this set into a tiebreak and almost win it. And you're thinking it's probably a 6-3, 6-4 match. And the next thing you know, it's 4-love Osaka's second set, and she wins it 6-1. And the serving in that set was magnificent. And then she was now starting to hit, just fire away for winners on the fourth, sixth shot of the exchange. She'd get any kind of an opening and just would not hold back. And her rate of success, David, considering the amount of pace she was putting on the ball and how close she was going to the lines, was astounding. So that set's over 6-1, and then she continued the march. She managed to get out of and broke Iga, and then gets out of a love 40 to go to 3-love. And the next thing you know, it's 4-1 Osaka. She has a break point for 5-1 and missed a backhand down the line, not by too much. The opening was there, and it was one of those shots she'd been pulling off. She couldn't quite make it there, and Iga, being the great competitor she is, kept it within one break. It's now, she keeps it to 4-2, but Osaka served a great game, blitzed through that game, I think, at love, to go 5-2. Now, again, you're thinking she's got enough of a cushion. She gets to love 30 on Iga's serve, made a few errors. That's where that was the first sign of any frailty on Osaka's part in the last two sets, is that she got a bit shaky from love 30, although Iga played a great point at love 30 to hit a backhand deep into the corner that was unstoppable. But anyway, Iga holds on. So now Naomi's serving for it, and she's up 30-15 and had a sitter forehand and tried to go behind Iga down the line for a winner. Anywhere on that side of the court was a winner, and she hit it in the net. She missed that forehand down the line. It was right there for the taking to be double match point. Nonetheless, from 30-40, she gets back up. She gets to match point, but missed her first serve. And then Iga made a terrific angle backhand second serve return, pulled Naomi off the court. Naomi felt like her only play was to go down the line, and she netted it. And then Iga breaks back. And then, there were a few more chances from Naomi in the 5-4 game, but basically you felt like it was over there. You feel like, you could feel like Swiatek had her teeth back into it, David, at that stage. And the last two games, you kind of sense the inevitability. And for the first time, Osaka had that look on her face of disappointment and frustration, a little bit of depression that she hadn't been able to put it away. But that also was a testament to Swiatek's discipline and match playing acumen, that she somehow found a way to hang in against this assault from Osaka. Osaka was so breathtaking up until then. It was like Iga was a spectator at her own match.
We had talked about on some previous episodes that we were looking for Osaka to really kind of pick it up this summer on the hard court swing. We didn't necessarily see this type of level at this point in the season. And boy, is it good to see her playing at this level, because she may be a little bit ahead of our schedule as far as what we thought she would be like as she got through the summer hard court swing.
Yeah, and then she'll have to get this will be a little bit bruising. It would be one thing if she just played a good match and lost 6-4 or lost 6-2 in the third, or something where she was just somewhat close but not really there. But when you get yourself to the cusp of victory like that and can't close it out, it'll hurt short term, but I think she'll be feeling very good about it. She said she spoke to her camp and had been wondering leading into this, can I really get back to the top 5 in the world? And knows it. She knows she can, and it will be fascinating to watch her get another crack at Iga if they played at Wimbledon or anywhere on the hard court circuit across the summer, anywhere in the lead up tournaments or even at the US Open, because she was so unshakable on her serve up until the very end, and then going for her shots in such a unrelenting way that that recipe is going to give Iga problems on the faster courts for sure. And then so that'll be interesting just to see how Osaka can do against the other top players. So yes, opportunity missed, but she kind of proved something to herself today about where she belongs back in today's game.
And Iga getting through that win, I mean, like you said, showed her mettle as the champion that she is. And our friend Katie sent me an ESPN article over the weekend, and they had some interesting stats that compared Iga to Rafa at the same age. And it said, at the same age of 23. And it said if Iga wins this tournament, both will have had 4 French Open titles at the age of 23. Rafa's record at 23 was 35-1 because he lost to Soderling when he was 23 years old in 2009. Iga would be 35-2 at the same age. And the career winning percentage on clay, Rafa's 87.5, Iga's 87.9. Thought those were really, really interesting statistics on, hey, we're not going to say Iga's going to win 14 French Opens, but the stats are the stats, and she's on the way to a heck of a career on clay, beyond, but I mean, especially on clay when you compare those stats with Rafa at age 23.
Well, yeah, I hate to see her have to live up to such comparisons, but I'll say this: look, at Rafa at that age, and you're mentioning the 09 loss to Soderling, and he had won Wimbledon. He got his breakthrough Wimbledon in 08. And then won it a second time. And he obviously ended up winning. He's won 4 US Opens. He's got 2 Australian. That'll be the interesting thing with Iga. Obviously, she's not going to win 14 French Opens. We can't ask that of her. Who knows if she's even playing the game at age 37, 38. She will win a bunch more, though, for sure. But the larger question with her is whether she can make her inroads that she's going to so badly want to do at Wimbledon, US Open, where she has a title already, and the Australian Open, where she hasn't won yet either. Will she be able to adapt to those surfaces? She's shown us in many ways that she's capable of it, but that'll be when the comparisons look even more interesting. As for the direct Rafa comparison at Roland Garros, I think Iga will be very happy if she could end her career with 7 or 8 of these, and I think there is a reasonable chance of that.
Yes, I would agree. All right, let's transfer into Rafa. And everyone was shocked when they saw the draw. He gets Sascha Zverev, who arguably is the hottest player on tour right now, winning Rome. Rafa did not look good in Rome. This was no way when Rafa gets this draw where you could say you can work yourself into this tournament. You can't. He's playing one of the hottest players on tour in Sascha Zverev. Look, I think we can say, and we'll get into depth, we can go set by set, but a few things, and then I'll pass it over to you. I thought Rafa's level was much better than it was in Rome, and I thought he would have beaten a lot of players that day. He just went up against a hot Sascha Zverev. That lefty forehand to the righty's backhand, tough against a guy like Sascha because he's 6'6". It was really high to get up on Sasha's backhand on that. Rafa 2 for 11 on break points. I also felt, especially when Rafa was serving for that set in the second set, but throughout the match, Rafa didn't get many free points, Steve, on his first serve, and I think that hurt as well. All in all, and we'll dissect it set by set. I thought Rafa's level was was very good. Again, he would have beaten a lot of players. I also want to talk about the emotions of maybe it's his last time on Roland Garros. It was a little bit different for me because Andre announced he was playing his last US Open. Pete Sampras did not. We didn't know that was going to be his last match when he beat Andre in the title. Roger, we knew Laver Cup. We didn't know his last loss at Wimbledon was going to be his last match at Wimbledon, but we knew Roger's last match was at Laver Cup. Rafa hasn't completely shut the door. So while we were all sad that he lost, it wasn't like we're never going to see this guy again. We're probably going to see him at the Olympics. So I've kind of said a lot. I'll let you kind of respond, and we'll go into the match itself. And the first game of the match, Rafa loses 4 points in a row to gets broken.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you alluded to the serve. The serve has been an issue throughout this clay court campaign. So this was nothing new. Zverev also is a guy who's got such long reach, so Rafa had to serve brilliantly wide in the ad court, which he did at times to get it out of Sasha's clean striking zone. So that was tough. And just the fact that the stats are showing he's averaging maybe 3 miles an hour less on that first serve than he was in the past. That makes a difference at this level. So yeah, it hurt him. but I would say it wasn't bad serving the first game. I think he was nervous. Yeah, there was one double in there, a couple of errors. He was tight. He was keyed up for the match. But he did settle in and played pretty well, and finally lost his serve again in the last game of the set. In between, he had a love 30 on Zverev serve, and then the second time around, he had 15-40, and Sascha got out of it. So it was an interesting, well-played set, a little closer than the 6-3 might tell you. Contest, because Zverev had the first opportunity at 2-1. He had Rafa at 15-40 to maybe really stretch his lead and go up a set and a break and pull away. And Rafa was so excited when he got out of that, when he managed to hold on to his serve there. And then he ends up really playing his way in this great form, and he's up 5-3. And what people forget is that the 5-3 game, Zverev was actually down 15-30. It looked like Rafa might maybe get another break. And served his way really nicely out of that. He had a couple of aces and then had a kind of a lucky break on the game point where Rafa he lobbed over Zverev, and Zverev threw up another lob, and Rafa was kind of discombobulated, not sure whether he hit an overhead. Bottom line is Zverev gets the clutch hold to make Rafa serve out that second set. And Rafa didn't win a point. He served okay in that game.
Served great. He just got 0 free points off of it.
Yeah, 3 outright winners from Sascha. He just started right off, came in and put away a smash, and then down the line forehand winner. It was just a brilliant game on his part. And maybe Rafa was a tad cautious, but there was really nothing he could have done to stop that avalanche being thrown at him. But then he had 15-40. Sascha, with one of his few nervous moments, he only served three double faults, I believe, in the match. In that 5-all game, having just broken back, he served one to go down 15-40. So there was that sense that maybe Rafa gets another crack and break him and have a second chance to serve it out. But he missed a return on that 15-40 point that the serve didn't break. That wasn't one of Sascha's better wide serves at the back end. And Rafa, I think, was disappointed in himself that he didn't keep that return in play. And then Sascha comes up with a great serve on the next one. And he, then they go to the tiebreak. And in the tiebreak, Rafa was just never ahead. He kept coming back, bouncing back, but Zverev, he never actually had a lead even on serve the whole breaker. And eventually Sascha gets it 7-5. A couple of
questionable drop shots. 2 of them were not very good. One of them was good. One of them I think was kind of a bluff near the end of a long point. But yeah, you're right. He was never really ahead in that breaker.
And then ironically, because you're right about the ill-advised drop shots, then he actually made a beauty to save a set point. He hit a forehand drop winner that saved the first set point, but Sascha won. Sascha put in a good first serve to Rafa's backhand, and Rafa netted the return. And you kind of knew then there was going to be a long way back after how long they'd been out there already to win 3 sets in a row from 2 sets to let down. But Rafa, he made it interesting. He got up the early break in the third, and then
I mean, he wasn't going to go away. He was up 2-0 right away. I mean, you think, like you said, most people are going to be go away. It's Rafa Nadal. He knows himself. This may be his last time playing the French Open. He gets the early break. We're not even thinking about set 4 and 5. We're just looking at survival right now. And he doesn't go away, which he never does. 2-0 out of the chute.
Yeah, two love, but then Zverev got a little bit lucky on it, stretching for a high backhand volley, backhand smash, and he kind of framed, but it stayed in the court and for a winner. And he kind of acknowledged it to Rafa. That got him back on serve, and the next thing it's 2-2. Rafa won a long marathon game, which is the last one of the matches, it turned out, to go up 3-2. I think 5 deuces, and he finally held. And that was a lift, and he was excited about that. But Zverev answered with a quick love hold. It was just a vicious game on his part. And he ends up running out the match from there. Rafa, made him work for it. But the last couple of games, you could sense that, it was in Zverev's hands. So look,
his backhand late in the match, Steve, he hit a few winners off cross-court backhands that were not easy balls to hit winners off of him. He made it look easy. He made it look easy. He played very well.
Earlier on, his forehand was pretty devastating too. Then he started to he didn't feel he could quite maintain that level of with a low margin for error. So he played it a bit more safely, which I think was wise, and just went for depth. But the backhand near the end, as you said, Rafa was trying to give him sort of low, short slices to taunt him a bit, make him come up with something from awkward positions. And Zverev is still hitting the lines. And McEnroe said, I watched both broadcasts. McEnroe said something that I felt myself, was like, how many, has anybody hit more lines than Zverev did that day? It was phenomenal. And you can't say it's lucky after a while. It reminds me of a match that McEnroe played once at the seniors against Sampras. And Sampras kept acing him, and John would dispute the calls. And then I heard him on a radio program a couple of days later saying, I've never seen a server ever hit more lines than Pete did against me that night. Well, this was similar. And Rafa was shaking his head, but he knew it wasn't lucky. You can't do it that many times. So look, all told, David, look, a decent performance. He didn't play a bad set there. He played a really good middle set, and took it into the tiebreak and had a chance to serve it out and couldn't do it. The first and the third were a bit more competitive than the scores would tell you.
And I'll add to that, Steve. I mean, if you look at the score 6-3, 7-6, 6-3, if you don't watch the match, you kind of say it's routine.
Right.
That match does 3 hours and 5 minutes. This was no easy victory for Sascha.
No, not at all. Not at all. And he wouldn't have expected it to be any other way. And I agree with your point that his level was higher than Rome, higher than anything he'd shown us in the previous 3 tournaments. On the other hand, obviously we can't know. You said something that I've heard a bunch of other people say, and who were good with good tennis minds. Rafa could have beaten so many people. That's true, but you're only playing one player that day. We can never know what he would have done against the others. But he acquitted himself well. You had said in one of your reports, this was not a drubbing. It was a well-played match. Zverev thoroughly deserved to win, but Rafa, understandably, was not that dismayed when it was over, because he felt like he'd been in there in all the sets, and it was the interesting thing would have been if the match had gone longer. If it had been 4 or 5, how well would his body have held up to 4 hours, 4.5 hours, 5 hours? To me, he did not look physically drained. I thought he looked okay physically right to the end. He was just getting outplayed by then, and it was too tall a mountain to climb. But
yes, it was to me, it was not a physical issue at all. He was just getting outplayed by a better player on that day.
But the fact that, against Zverev, who could make him run that much, it was a good sign that he could stand up to that kind of physical punishment for 3 hours and look as if he had more in him. Now the question, to get back to some of your other comments, where does he go from here? The way I look at it is he's very sensible. He talked immediately about it probably wouldn't be a good idea to play Wimbledon because he'd be changing surfaces, going to the grass to come back to the clay. Obviously, at this stage, at this sort of midnight hour of his career, he doesn't believe that's something he can do anymore. And also, does he really believe he would go in there with a serious chance to win Wimbledon? I don't think so. So I think he's much wiser. I hope he sticks to that philosophy and just goes back home and competes and practices on clay, gets back to Roland Garros early for the Olympics and trains hard to see what he might be able to accomplish. And these are best of 3 set matches again. Right. Which at this stage I think is preferable for him.
We talked about that on our previous episode. It was a question I asked you. In the past, the best players wanted to go longer as possible because it's least chance. People can't get lucky over a longer period of time. But I'm with you. I think the shorter time now helps him actually.
Not to mention, he'd like to play the doubles with Carlos. They would be exciting to watch. Who knows what they might be able to do? Rafa's had more experience in doubles than Carlos, and Rafa's actually a darn good doubles player. But either way, it would be fun to try to get a medal with Carlos. Then I don't know, David. That's the thing I wonder. Does he then think he can shift back to hard, which is the most punishing surface on his body of all of them? Does he feel he's up to that, to then trying to play and he have played the Olympics, so he probably would only be able to play one hardcourt event leading up to the Open. Is that something he wants to attempt, or is he going to just let it go? That's the unpredictable part, and I don't think he can figure that out yet either. And I don't even think he wants to right now. I think he wants to just get himself ready for the Olympic. That's my sense.
I agree with you. What about like the emotions? Like, how are you feeling again? Because he really didn't let you into like the finality of it all, because he's not done. He's saying himself he's not necessarily done. He even left a small window up that this may not be his last French Open. But put that aside, let's say it is. How were you when he shook hands with Sascha and he spoke and he then walked off to that thunderous ovation? It's a little different, right? Because you're still going to see him play as long as he's healthy, right?
Yes, yes, but the likelihood is you're not going to see him play there at the French Open. You're going to see him play there at the Olympics. So in terms of this singularly excellent tournament in his career, you know, the one he'll always be remembered for with his 14 titles. In that sense, it was a very poignant moment. But I felt a sense on his part. Well, I went out and I tried and I played pretty well, and I didn't embarrass myself, and I had a chance to win the second set. I'm not ashamed of this performance. I think that was the good part.
And maybe, like you said, he knows if he plays, he's healthy, he plays the Olympics, there's a good chance he's back on that very court again. So
Yeah,
it's not
true.
even like in a different court setting. He's going to be right there again soon.
Yeah, but this could well have been and likely was the end of his French Open career. In that sense, it was very it was very poignant, very moving. And then he agreed to do the interview, which of course never happens. But Maresmo went over to him and asked him if he would do it. He was very gracious to do it. His remarks were very well delivered, and he
Well,
gave some.
reports, Steve, were before the tournament, they asked if they wanted to do like a special tribute to him. And originally he said yes, but as it got closer to the tournament, Rafa was like, okay, I'm at a pretty good level. Let's may not do that because I don't know if I'm 100% closed. Again, Rafa leaving a sliver open that he may do this again.
Well, that part I think makes sense. Others have announced retirements and then decided they were coming back, and I don't think he wants to go through that and have this done on his part and then change his mind and play here next year. So that I get, that I get. But if it was his last French Open, that was not a bad way to go out. I mean, you had said yourself. I mean, you were right in the sense that unless he'd lost 1-2-1, just played miserably, then you'd feel terrible. But to play against a guy as great as Zverev, who's fully capable of winning this tournament, and play at that level for 3 sets, he has nothing to be that disconcerted about. Plus, why was he not better in the big points? He knows when you've been gone this long, it takes even a few more tournaments to get yourself in the position where it's automatic again and where you can deliver at those moments. And he can't right now. And I get it. I mean, all the way from the Australian Open last year to Brisbane this year, and then all the way from Brisbane to the clay court circuit, it's been so disruptive. He's played so little.
I agree.
Same way at the big moments.
I want to hit on 2 other older guys on the ATP tour. They played it was heading into this match. It was head to head 13-9 Andy Murray. We're talking the Stan Wawrinka versus Andy Murray first round. It feels like they play each other all the time. Stan won pretty handily. I mean, it was pretty straightforward. Still good to see both those guys play. But what was your take on that match?
Well, yeah, sadly, by the way, Stan, the short time before we started this, Stan did get beaten today at 7-6 in the fourth in the second round. Well, my take on it was it was played in such a respectful way. Andy physically was worse off than Stan, who's not in the best shape himself. So it was hard to watch them feeling like neither one of them is physically where they want to be, but especially Andy right now. And yet the way they greeted each other at the net afterwards and had this talk, and you see the respect that was built up between the two over the years and the memories of playing a couple of semifinals here at the French Open, for example, back in 16 and 17. They have so many memories of meeting in the latter stages of tournaments, and they do respect each other. And I think Andy particularly respects how much better Stan got when he got into the latter stages of his 20s. You know, he was kind of a late bloomer, but suddenly in this period between 14 and 16, Stan wins the Australian in 14, beats Djokovic and Nadal to win that. He wins the French in 15, and he beats Federer in straight sets in the quarters, and he beats Novak in the final. And then in the US Open of 16, he beats Djokovic in the final. Those are 3 incredible majors for him. And I think Andy, who had worked so hard to win his 3 majors, but maybe didn't expect Stan to ever become that great a player, he really appreciated what Stan did to improve his game at a point later than most would be able to do it.
Do want to mention one thing again, because we didn't really do a preview episode, but I do want to hit on Dominic Thiem. He loses in the second round of qualifying. It was a packed crowd there for him, Steve. I think a bunch of us wish he would have gotten a wild card, and at least losing the main draw. But he said all the right things, Steve. Again, we don't know what he was feeling on the inside, but he was very professional in his comments and what he said. But hats off. It's just injuries are just the worst, right? There's no other way to put it. And to cut his career short is very unfortunate, but he had a heck of a run for several years at the French Open.
Couple of finals at the French, losing to Rafa, finals of the Australian, losing to Novak, wins the US Open. Thank God he won that Open, because this guy is always so industrious and hardworking and so explosiveness off both sides. No, nobody could hit the one. I guess Stan would be the only other one, but I don't think, aside from Stan, I don't think I've ever seen anybody hit the one-handed backhand harder than Dominic Thiem. And there was just such an earnest, decent quality about him. So all those guys, Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, all the top players held him in the highest esteem. So it's sad that he's not getting the opportunity to display the kind of enduring excellence that the likes of Nadal, Djokovic, Federer did, to go deep into his 30s and still be contending. He's not going to. It's not ending the way he would have wanted, but I'm glad that he leaves with a major title in his collection.
Agreed. And then I will leave you with two players. I don't know if you want to say on opposite directions, because Maria Sakkari, who has lost in the first round of 4 of her last majors. This one with her new coach, with David Witt, who Maria has had success initially with David. I was very surprised with this result. She's lost in the first round in 4 of her last 5 majors. And then I want to ask you about a younger player, Peyton Stearns, who we've talked about previously. She wins a 250. She was down 0-5 and a match point in the third set of her quarterfinal match in that 250. She wins her first round match in a super break, in a 10-point. I'm so used to high school tennis right now, super breaker, in a 10-point tiebreaker. She was in all sorts of trouble there, but she skirted her way past that match. Maria, where do you see her? Because she did have good results leading up to this French. And then Peyton Stearns, where do you see her? Wimbledon. And then I think we're all excited to see her play on the summer hardcourt season.
Oh, I think Stearns is going to have a great rest of the season. I don't have any doubt about it. She's on such a nice run, and she seems to play away under pressure. She does not crack. I mean, there are a lot of ups and downs and pendulum swinging matches, but she just fights her way through them. We've seen it time and again. So I'm not worried about her. I'm not that worried about Sakkari either, by the way. It's been a losing syndrome at these majors, but Witt will remind her that she's got so many more to play, and she can break this habit, break this pattern, and start getting back into the latter stages where we've seen her in the semis of majors before. That will start happening again, because she's too good a player to keep losing early. So it's a little psychological right now. Yeah. Maybe, she got here and is thinking, I can't let this happen again. It's not going to last, because somebody that good and who's shown it for as long as she has over the last 3 or 4 years is going to get it back at the majors, I'm saying.
Yes. Well, Maria would like those comments that you just said. So the next time we do this, let's do it, depending on the weather, where we're at in the tournament, we don't know, but let's plan on doing something, over the middle weekend here, and we'll see where we're at that point. And then obviously we'll do our wrap-up episode. Before we go, any closing thoughts from you? Novak looked to be somewhat getting back to comfort.
I think he was fine. Yeah, I thought Novak was fine. It was difficult. He played it at night, and there was cool conditions under the roof, it was open, and it was a cool evening, and Herbert played really well. He was giving him a lot of trouble with his huge kick second serve, that one of the toughest second serves I think Djokovic would say that he has faced in recent years. So he was having trouble breaking him from early in the second. He was up a set and a break, 1-love, serving for 2-love, until the last game of the match. He didn't break him again until 4 or 5 in the third. But in between, he played one of his typically A typical Djokovic, I'm giving you nothing tiebreak, 7 points to 3, one unforced error. He was superb in the tiebreak, getting himself also very revved up and demonstrative in that tiebreak, where you sense the passion was back. So I think all told, it was a nice start for him. He only lost his serve once in the 3 sets, won the first comfortably, finally got the break in the third, and in between he wins a tiebreak. Put actually a good way to start the tournament. Somewhat tested, but still a straight set winner.
Well, a lot of tennis left to be played, and let's hope the weather cooperates. And we'll do this over the weekend. We'll do a middle tournament recap. Sound good?
Sounds good, David. I enjoyed it.